So now it's time to welcome the Executive Director of CDP, Maxfield Weiss. Max, where are you? Come on up.
The man of the moment.
Nice to see you, Max.
Nice to see you, Max. How
Nice
are
to
you?
see you again.
And how are you and CDP feeling now after the fact that there was a COP27 agreement on climate and the COP15 on biodiversity, but not a lot of people were happy. A lot of people were not happy about how they came out, right?
Well, first off, Maeve, hello. Chris, hello. Welcome, everyone. You know, I'd have to say, the feeling on the ground was probably a little bit anxious.
Because you were there.
I was there, right?
Yeah.
But it was also resolute, right? I think the main thing here is we just need to be frank. We're far off from meeting CDP's goals of creating an economy that works for people and planet. Now, for the next 2 hours, we're going to be debating the planet. But I must say, it's so great to be with the people again, right? This is our first awards back in person. So I have to stop and I have to say, welcome back to the CDP.
Welcome. Absolutely.
Give yourself a round of applause.
Yes.
Now, you're right, we're coming off the back end of the two COPs. We had COP27 for climate, we had COP15 for nature, and as you said, I was on the ground in Egypt. And I think the thing that everybody kept saying was that this was going to be our implementation COP. This was going to be the COP when we turned all those commitments into real action and progress on 1.5. But let's just face it, I think we need to be honest. That didn't happen. Our leaders, they once again failed us, and it was more norm than transform. Now, there were some good things that we saw out of that. We had some progress on finance for vulnerable countries, but then we backslid on fossil fuels. And once again, we're creating more vulnerabilities in our system. We just barely came out of COP, keeping 1.5 alive. And now, what are we facing? A 7% increase in CO2 when we need to cut emissions in half this decade. I mean, that's scary. But then we had that, and then we had COP15, our nature COP, and we had a historic deal on nature. And particularly relevant for CDP is that we're now going to see biodiversity reporting become the norm, which is great. But I really was thinking today about the prevalence of COP15 and why it's so important. And I had thoughts when I was in this building, this foundation, and to really put it into concept notes here, I'd like to quote Monet. And Monet said, "All the richness that I achieve, it comes from nature. The richness that I achieve comes from nature." And today, as we go through these conversations for the next 2 hours, this is what I'd like you to contemplate, because everything in life that we achieve comes from nature. All of you, the businesses, the profits of the businesses in this room, the cities and the wealth and the culture in this room, as well as the assets under management of all the funds in this room. This all comes from nature. And now we have a goal on nature, just like we do for the Paris Agreement. And this means we've been commissioned to create a great piece of art. We've put that canvas up onto the easel, and now we just need to add the elements. We need to add the policies. We need to add the investments, and we need to add the corporate action that is going to allow us to realize our COP deals and put that composition in place for both nature and climate.
What a nice metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Monet would be proud.
He would indeed. So that's why you're saying this year, transform, then norm. That is
Exactly.
the motto.
Exactly. That's what we're saying. Because, you know, we're surrounded in this wonderful foundation by amazing pieces of arts. We have Monets, we have Mitchells, we have Murakamis. And if I was thinking about this, what is it that all the great artists have in common? Well, they link together amazing thoughts and ideas. And those ideas are that they have identified what exists. They have questioned the limits. They have broken with the status quo, and then they've turned this into action, into movements within our society and within our world. And this is exactly the mindset that we need to address our environmental crisis. Because, Chris, we need a new era, one where we have an economy that works for both people and planet, that is just. And to get there, we're going to need every single city, every single business in this room to have a clear transition path in place. And that is why we need them to look towards the great artists of the world. They need to have all the colors, the right materials, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, they need the sheer will. They need the sheer will to transform the norm.
So what is CDP looking to see on this? How can CDP help in making this happen?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Right.
And if you think about it, masterpieces have a few things. It has a little bit of genius, and I think we have quite a bit of genius in this room tonight, but they have strong foundations. So the foundations that we have on our palettes, they are targets for emissions that are related to climate science, that are tackling Scope 3. We have goals for nature that are going to create a full recovery of our ecosystems. We need to have zero greenwash, and that's important, zero greenwash. And then on top of that, we need to have time-bound plans. And these time-bound plans need to show the investments. It needs to show the supplier work as well as the business plans to get there. And I'm going to go one farther, and we have a lot of CEOs who are speaking here this afternoon. We need to link CEO pay and bonuses for protecting the earth and protecting the wealth of its people.
You're throwing down the gauntlet
just
there, huh?
shareholders. We're going to have them come out and talk about that a little bit from now. But that's what the objective is. And if you look at it, what we're facing is we're looking at a world where all these are stepping up, all these are coming into play. And what we need to do is look to the CDP A-list leaders because they are best prepared. We need to have all companies, all cities, stand up and step in and be ready to transform the norm.
And Max, as you know, I'm based in Brussels. We know there's lots of EU laws on the way. Do you think things are ramping up?
You know, that's a great question. And the answer I would have is yes and no. And I think the way that we can view this is from the report that CDP is releasing today. And the key stat out of this report is that just 5% of companies have clear and credible transition plans in place. Just 5%. So what we need out of that is we need to look at this reckoning that's coming from the European economy. We're going to now finally have an environmental disclosure law on the books with the CSRD. We're going to have 50,000 companies, not just here in Europe, but all around the world who sell their goods and services on the European market who are going to be impacted by this legislation.
Yeah.
We're going to have the reporting standards, and this is going to be for both human rights and for sustainability issues like nature. And today, I'm really thrilled. We're going to hear from the EU markets regulators on her plan to cut greenwash.
Yep, Verena.
Right?
Fantastic.
And then on top of that, we're going to have the EU Commissioner for Justice, and he's going to talk about his policy. And get this, it's going to require every single company to have a 1.5 transition plan in place. So there's so much that needs to be done. But I think what we're seeing now is, especially in Europe, accountability, it's never been so real. So what does this mean? It means that every company, they need to be transparent and they need to demonstrate us that they can be credible and their compositions have the right plans in place to be able to thrive and survive in the new economy that we need of the future.
So any final thought before we go to our first panel? I think what's important is that CDP can help companies into complying with those regulations, right?
That's the key here, right? So if I was going to look at my final thoughts, we're going to have a conversation over the next 2 hours, right? And I'd like you to do a few things tonight. Number one, enjoy yourself. Enjoy this evening. Enjoy the food. Enjoy the art. Enjoy connecting with people and having new conversations and picking up on some old ones now that we're in person. And anyone who's wearing a red badge, that's a CDP staff member. Say hello to them. Ask them how they're creating an economy that works for people and planet. Now, we are the world's environmental disclosure system, and we're going through a transformation ourselves because we have to change the way we work to support investors. We need to support the companies, the cities, and the states and regions that we work with to exist within this new era. So a few take-home notes for you. Think about this today as we're going through these discussions. What are the tools that you need? What is the ambition that you need? Because we are running out of time. Humanity's future is in our hands. Maeve, the Earth's future is in our hands. And the time is now. It is time to transform the norm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. Thank you.
Round of applause there for Maxfield Weiss.
Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
And you too. Thank you so much.